Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here and I'm back again with a brand new video. So before I begin, as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, make sure you leave a thumbs up. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. So with that being said, today I want to speak to you guys about my experience with the Samsung Galaxy S24 FE now that I've been an on and off user for about a month, a little bit over a month. But essentially, a lot of my thought process from my initial usage of this phone didn't really change. It actually became I'm more aware that this phone is the right phone for a lot of people. Let's go ahead and begin by talking a little bit about the design. Now, obviously, in my opinion, this is a familiar Samsung design. However, I do have to kind of nitpick here a little bit and say that I'm not really the biggest fan of glossy material, especially the fact that they're going to catch fingerprints and they can be slippery at time. But yeah, this still uses on the back the Gorilla Glass Victus Plus, so very durable. And on the back as well, you do have your triple camera set up with your LED flash, and the camera itself does protrude quite a bit, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, which we will talk about the camera later on. On the right hand side, you do have your power button / volume up and down, and because this phone does have an in-display fingerprint that's more or less reliable, they went away and made the power button kind of smaller to kind of match the aesthetic of any of their phones that have an in-display fingerprint. And if you look at the bottom of the phone, you know you have kind of a somewhat premium device when you don't see a headphone jack, so that's kind of your giveaway. But you do have your USB-C port that does support 25 watt of fast charging. I wish it was a little bit faster, but then again, it's one of those points where I do nitpick. And on the bottom, you do have your bottom facing speaker that's really good. Also, if you look at the sides of the phone, it is made out of aluminum. So basically, glass front, glass back, aluminum frame. I can take that. I can live with that. So yeah, overall as a design, it's not the greatest looking phone, but it still is a pretty good familiar Samsung design. Now, when we look at the display here, this is definitely a somewhat of a premium display. So it's larger than the previous S23 FE, so you do get a 6.7 inch 2340 by 1080p, and it has a lot of familiar things that premium Samsung phones have when it comes to the display. So it is dynamic AMOLED display. It does support 120 Hz of high refresh rate, and it does also support HDR10 Plus, and you also get 1900 nits of peak brightness. Here's the situation. The bezels on this phone are slightly smaller than the previous generation as well, so it does have kind of an 88.8% screen to body ratio. It's plenty sharp, plenty detailed. I have nothing negative to say about this display. Again, if I were to nitpick, you can say that, hey, I wish the bezels were even smaller, but that's just being a little bit too greedy at this point. And when it comes to watching videos, going through social media, doing anything that would require you to use this display, which is pretty much anything, then you would not really have a bad time using this phone. You would actually enjoy the experience, and it's so close to the standard S24 that it's becoming obvious that I would choose this over the S24 strictly based on the display and the money that I'm saving. That's essentially the display department of the S24 FE now that I've had it for a month later. Nothing crazy to complain about here. Now, if we look at the camera experience on this phone, you do get a triple camera setup. I do have a full dedicated camera review. I'll leave it in the description below. So you get a 50 megapixel f1.8 aperture, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 12 megapixel 123 degree ultra wide. And the telephoto lens and the main sensor both have optical image stabilization. The telephoto lens does have 3 times optical zoom, and this phone supports a ridiculous 8K video recording at 30 frames per second. Mind you, I know this is a little bit of overkill, but just so I can put it into perspective, the newest iPhone does not support 8K recording. You also have the ability to record video at 4K, 30, 60, or 120 frames per second, or even 1080p at up to 240 frames per second. If you want crazy, stupid, slow-mo video, 720p at 960 frames per second. You also get a 10 megapixel front-facing camera that does also shoot 4K video at 30 or 60 frames per second. A lot of technicality here, but bottom line is this phone takes some really good picture, way better pictures than the previous generation. I don't know what they did to the camera sensor this time around, but it's definitely a solid camera system. It's not the best. Some may argue that the Pixel phones do still have better camera systems, and I can agree with those people, but I have little to nothing to complain about from the camera system here. Like I said, a full dedicated video of the camera would be in the description below. If I were to again nitpick here and there, I would say that in some scenarios there's slight over sharpening, and the dynamic range for the most part is good. The colors and the saturation can be good on some pictures, bad on others, and the video capability of this phone is really nice. It's not as choppy, and there's not quite as much shutter lag as there was on the previous generation. And again, you can go up to 8K video recording, so that's cool as well. Okay, if I were to also again nitpick, nighttime photography is not the greatest on this phone, and I have more detailed review on that in my kind of camera review. And also the wide angle sensor is not as of a quality as I would like it to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch and flip this conversation to the performance department, and this is also another category that this phone excels in. The specs on this phone are as follows, and this is basically the base configuration. So you do get a 10-core CPU, the Exynos 2400E based on a 4nm, and you also get 128GB of storage, 8GB of RAM, the X Eclipse 940 for your GPU, a slightly larger battery than the previous generation at 4700 mAh battery, and you also have support for wireless charging. When it came to the practicality of it, besides all these kind of numbers that I talked about, this phone runs as smooth as it could be, from opening up your daily tasks, doing what you do on your phone on a daily basis, browsing the web, switching between apps, thanks to the 8GB of RAM. But even when you look at the benchmark score of the 2112 single core and 6625 of the multi-core, it's really competing with its kind of little brother, which is the S24. So performance on here is fantastic by every stretch that I can think of. So playing games on here is really good, really solid. I don't have much to complain about. And also, kind of technical situation, the S24 FE does have a better heatsink, so it does not get as hot as I would say previous Samsung phones, which they did have this type of issue. The S23 FE was pretty good, but the S24 FE is even better. So there's that for you. And yeah, from a performance perspective, again, not much to complain about. Now, here is where I stand on this phone now that I've been using it for 1 month. And this is kind of the basis of the whole entire situation. Whenever you review a phone by using it for 1 week, it's not really something that you can fully draw a conclusion on and be like, all right, cool, good phone, recommend it, keep it pushing. I feel like this phone is meant to last longer than the previous generation S23 FE. So for the longevity, this is definitely a phone that is worth considering when looking at buying phones. And knowing Samsung devices, it's going to go on sale sooner or later. So if you can catch it between $450 and $500, that's a solid deal. And I know carriers also may have their own deal as well, because this is definitely going to be one of the most consistent phones that will be good to use for a while. In some situations, it's a better performing phone than the Pixel phones. So keep that in mind. If you're strictly all about camera, then yeah, I guess you can go the Pixel route. And if you're strictly all about, well, I could get a better value by getting a previous generation flagship, true, but this phone is meant for the longevity. So it's going to have a long time software support and security support, which is a thumbs up. Hopefully Samsung lives up to that promise. If they do, we're in great shape. If they don't, I can make another video about it. Yeah. But basically, these are just my thoughts about the Galaxy S24 FE now that I've been a solid user for about a month. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about this phone. However, I do want to hear your guys' thoughts. Tell me in the description, in the comments below, what you think about this device. Do you think that it has lived to the FE expectation or not? Which FE stands again for Fan Edition. So did it live to your expectations? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know. I would love to have a chat with you guys in the comments below. So with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will most definitely catch you guys in the next one. Be sure to subscribe for more. Thank you guys so much for watching.